Hello viewers, today I'm ranking my makgeolli brewing method videos. So this is the fourth of my tier list videos. The first tier list ranking I did was for fruit makgeolli. So I ranked the fruit makgeolli that I brewed on this channel in tier list fashion. The second video in this series was ranking flavored makgeolli other than fruit. And the third video in the series was ranking my recipes with alternate starches. And one of the big categories that remains, there are a lot of videos that remain to be ranked, but the biggest category is just all the non-flavored recipes that use different techniques. So different brewing methods, but they're not flavored in any particular way. They're just rice. They don't use any alternate starches. So that's what I'm ranking today. And there'll be 28 videos for me to rank here. And always, I have to say, if you like this video, please click that like button and subscribe. And please share this video wherever it is appropriate. I appreciate your help in spreading the word about rustic Asian rice wine. So let's look at the videos that we're going to rank today. Okay, here's all the thumbnails that I want to rank today. There's 28 of them, I think, and this is the ranking system I'm going to use. So my very first makgeolli, single stage brew with sweet rice, that's going to be the standard that I rate things at. That's going to be a C. So if something is as good as that first recipe, then that's a C. Something that is actually better than that, variations on the recipe that make things better, that are good, are going to be B. And variations that produce an excellent brew, really worthwhile things, are going to be A. And then the superior recipes, the ones that are truly exceptional, the best recipes out of all the ones I've tried over the years, those are going to be S. And then I have some room below C for D, the disappointments. Okay, so I've categorized the first the thumbnail here. I made makgeolli for the first time, and that's a C. Okay, that's the standard. When I learned how to make a two-stage makgeolli, well, that is better than a single-stage makgeolli. And this is just the simplest two-stage makgeolli I did a long time ago. Eongju with juk as the first stage and godubap as the second stage. Okay, the next one I have here, bambak. Actually, bambak, I like bambak a lot. That really makes things better. Bambak is better. Next, so I like bambak. Filtering the mitsul, that's the first stage. Filtering the first stage, that's a technique you could try. I think that does make things better. That'll be a B. I'll rank that as a B. Okay. The worst brew. Okay, this is a brew I made with only rice flour, and actually I have to pull out a new category for this. So this is going to be F category, because that was a failure. That just, yeah. I sort of knew it wouldn't work out, but I did not know it would be this bad. That's that was unfortunate, just a learning experience. That was an F. Okay, kitchen versus basement brewing location. Okay, well, that's an important criteria, the temperature that you're fermenting at. That is really important. That can improve things. I'm going to put that as B. Let me move these guys over. Okay. You know what I wanted to do. Okay, so controlling the temperature, that is really important. So that might even be an A. You can controlling the temperature really can improve your brew. Okay, what's another thing you can control is the brewing duration. That's pretty important too. Although it's less critical than you might think. If you're a few days earlier or later, it probably doesn't make much of a difference. But knowing the effect it has is important. So I'm going to make that a B. Okay. Okay, starting off with a hotter temperature. I did some experiments where I started off at a hotter temperature than normal. Say, normally I start below 30 degrees Celsius. This one I started at 35 or at 45. And that didn't really improve the brew. It didn't ruin it either. So I'm going to just put that as a C. That was the result of that experiment. Okay, and this experiment, I added extra water. So did that ruin the brew? Did that make it overly sour? No, it didn't. It didn't. It wasn't a big improvement. I'm used to how it tastes with my normal amount of water, and that's good flavor. But simply adding extra water did not ruin it. I'm gonna leave that as a C. So all these things, I learned something. Sometimes what I learned is that certain variables didn't affect the flavor for these recipes. So that was a good experiment to do. Now, pasteurizing. Now, pasteurizing does affect the flavor. I don't think it improves the flavor, but it is an important method for preserving, for helping preserve food. And it's the only way to get a rice wine that's, shelf stable for a year is to pasteurize it. But for home brewing, I don't necessarily recommend it unless it's something you can experiment with. But it doesn't improve the brew in terms of flavor. So I'm going to leave that as a C. Okay, what do we have here? Okay, filter bags. Okay, well, once again, I learned that changing the size of the filter bag, say from 80 microns to 200 microns, that's sort of the normal range of nylon filter bags you can buy. Those are pretty big holes, but they're useful for sort of the right size for filtering makgeolli. It didn't affect the flavor. So once again, I learned, okay, that was not a critical factor. Difference between 80, 150, 200, not really that important in terms of the flavor. So I'm going to rate that as C2. So I have so many C's. In order to fit these on the page, just going to have to make room for it. These are all C's. These are all C's. Okay. Washing and soaking rice. Okay, well, that is really important. But I guess the thing I did here is what happens if you don't soak the rice at all and you try to steam rice that hasn't been soaked. That was a total failure. So that's a lesson there. Yeah. So, and timing the second stage. Okay, for a two-stage brew, of course, you can vary the timing between the first and second stage. That does affect things somewhat. It's important to know the effect it has. I think if you want to make chongchu, you'd want a longer time between the first and second stage. If you're just in a hurry, you can have a shorter time between the first and second stage. So knowing that is useful. I'm going to put that I'm going to rate that a B. Extracting more. Yeah, that's really useful. Okay, that's an A technique. So after you filter, when you're filtering, you squeeze your brew through a filter cloth or filter bag, and you're left with the jjigae. There's still a lot of flavor and alcohol left in the jjigae, so you can actually filter that again. You can add water, squeeze it through again. You can get an extra bowl of makgeolli from that, and I think that's very. It's the most. I think it's some of the most authentic makgeolli you can have. That bit you squeeze out at the end and add water to. So that is a technique. I do recommend that. Back sweetening and bottle conditioning. I never got excited about that. That's not really for me. That's just a C technique. I guess some of the things I did have a bad effect. That's sort of because I must have done it wrong. Adding the Camden tablets to try to stop the fermentation, but it ended up producing sulfur compounds and didn't completely stop the fermentation. So that was bad. So in that aspect, that actually was a disappointment. Let's put that down at a D. Okay, here's an interesting one, the sunny and watery. So that's the Bapje method and the watery Nuruk method. Now the Bapje method is certainly an S. That's a technique that everyone should know about, and you should try to do regularly. Keeps your Nuruk fresh, rejuvenates it. Best thing you should do for brewing. You should do that every time if you can. Yeah, so that's the, let me just make this clear. I'm only talking about the sunny part here. That's an excellent thing to do, but I'm going to duplicate this because it also was a big failure. It also belongs down as a failure because the watery part I didn't do right. I don't know what I'm doing. So the watery Nuruk, for me, that was a total failure. Leaving the Nuruk in water without air for extended period of time just produced a rotten smell, and I couldn't really, even though it fermented later, I couldn't really drink the result. Okay, so that was a failure, the watery part of that video. But the sunny part, the Bapje method, that's something you should do every time. Okay, Samyangju, the 3-stage makgeolli. Well, that's an excellent thing to do. That's even better than the 2-stage makgeolli, so I'm going to put it as an A. And a hard steamed rice cake. Well, I was experimenting with all kinds of things early on, and although I'm sure it is possible to brew with different kinds of rice cakes, steamed in different ways and processed and reprocessed. I know there are legitimate recipes that are successful that do this. The way I did it wasn't so great. I didn't know the details of what I should have been doing. So that was a disappointment. That's a D. What do I have here? Oh, stirring. Okay, stirring or not, turns out for a single stage brew doesn't really matter. So that's going to be a C. And I was trying these bangmanju recipes. Oh yeah, okay, so I have these two. Well, they're interesting. Maybe it was somewhat as an improvement. At least I get some kind of different flavors out of this. Bangmanju, I have good memories of you. On the other hand, doing 2 stages of the godubap, I don't really have good memories of that. That did not have an interesting flavor. In the end, it was just doing the same thing twice. Yeah, so that was disappointing. I'll leave that as a D. Okay, so we have lots of C's, quite a few B's, and only a few at the top. These Oyangjus are A recipes. No, they're better than A. They're S's. The Oyangjus are S's. I mean, if you have the time to do 5 stages, and there are many ways to do it with different preparations of rice, but if you have the time to do the 5 stages, it was really worth it. It's much smoother, and for some reason I got just more of everything out of it. So it fermented better, and it was sweeter, and smoother, and more alcohol. So it's just an excellent recipe. It's what you aim for, and if you have time to do it, it's really worthwhile. Okay, what other things was I testing? I was testing, steamer versus rice cooker. Now, there are other practical reasons for wanting to steam rice, and I talk about that in some of my makgeolli talk videos. But just in terms of the flavor, as long as you adjust the water content, because the rice cooker the rice produced by cooking in a rice cooker is going to be wetter than the steamed rice. So you are going to have to adjust the water content by adding less water than you normally would. And I go over that in this video. But just doing that, it doesn't ruin things using rice from a rice cooker. You can still brew with it. So it's not a big improvement either. So I'm just leaving that as a C. And what else did I test? I tested this. This is testing waters, just tap water, the well water, compared with bottled water, making sure I can brew with it, and it worked fine. So no particular preference there. That was just fine. So that's another C. Okay, another experiment here, understeaming or oversteaming. Well, neither of those ruined the brew, and they actually didn't, surprisingly, it didn't affect it that much. So steaming half as long or twice as long didn't affect the flavor, the fermentation process that much. Again, a little surprising, because I normally measure I'm timing the steaming of the rice so precisely down to the minute, but wasn't really necessary to do that. So I'm, again, another C. A preparation method that didn't ruin things, but wasn't necessary to do one way or the other. Okay, so this is a good method, sugok, so using the liquid from the first from soaking nuruk, using that liquid. That's a good method. That's going to be a B. And then what I have here at the end is this adjusting and scaling the recipe. So this was just a Yeongju recipe, but I scaled it, used a big jar. That was, there are some other special techniques in this video. So I was much more careful in terms of preparing the juk and the ingredients used. I used the frozen rice flour instead of the dry rice flour. So actually this probably is an A. I was much more careful in this one. And I think the result was worth it. So sometimes it is good to brew in a larger quantity. Okay, so every time I do this kind of ranking, there's always something to learn in terms of patterns. And one of the patterns here, of course, is that more stages is better. Okay, so yeah, so it's more work, but it's a better brew. I think that's not controversial. Now, other things are more my personal preferences. That I like Bambach better than juk. It's hard to explain why, but that's the feeling I have from brewing over and over again. I like Bambach better. I guess some of the other things I learned from experiments, you can go in the same experiment, you can have part of it be a big success and part of it be a big failure. There's a lot to learn from all of these experiments, even when all you learn is that, it didn't matter. Well, then that's a variable you don't have to stress about in the future. If you don't stress about the water or the amount of time you steamed it, or even the precise number of days it fermented. In the extremes are going to matter, but just being a bit different, the timing being a bit off, it's not going to ruin the brew. You're still going to have a delicious rice wine at the end, as long as you follow one of the A, B, C recipes or S recipes. That's going to be good. Only the sort of the wilder experiments where I tried to do things that I really didn't have a recipe for the hard steamed rice cake. I just made some and plopped it in, and so I shouldn't have expected that to work out so well. So okay. So for all of these, there's something to learn from them. This was a good reminder for me of the different recipes I've tried over the years. I hope you found it interesting. And of course, let me know what you've tried. If there's some techniques that I've missed that you have something to tell me about, please let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching.